So it turns out that a lot of you fine folks found some use in the last video on 15 training spots. Actually, the amount of likes and comments that particular guide has received has propelled it forward to be one of the most viewed videos on the channel, which is all down to you guys. Yous are awesome. Moving forward a few weeks later then, it's likely that many of you are now upgraded, experienced and considerably more badass than the baby tadpoles you first were when you started out in Next Order. Because of this then, I'm here to give you guys a quick top up on your Digi info and provide you with 10 new handy training spots. Now, as a warning, these are not supposed to be a replacement for the original 15 areas, rather they should be considered additional spots to slot in with those discussed in the first video. Your Seedramons, your Orange War Growlmons and your Platinumomons are still some of the best places to gain fast XP, but these new spots that I'm about to discuss aim to act as a supplement to these, not necessarily replace them. Secondly, these new 10 start off at a significantly higher starting point and will be most useful for players who are pretty far into the game. This time around I will be joined by Renamon and Digimon, who at the moment are currently cute little noobs, but who will soon become hustling warlords of swag. As a quick side note guys, the channel Twitter is becoming a bit more warmly, so feel free to hop over and say hello. I'm currently following back our first 100 followers, so if you're looking for an extra friend, shoot me over some of that hot lovin'. As always folks, be sure to let me know down in the comments what you'll think, and to share with me some of your favourite spots if they haven't yet made it into our list. Without any further nonsense, let's begin. Kicking off our list at our number 1 spot then, we have Meramon level 15, found in the Dragon's Trident part of Logic Volcano. These are obviously a big step up from the Goblimon that we recommended as our number 1 spot in the last video, but as we've already discussed, it's likely that these guys aren't going to be much use to any of you in terms of gaining stats anymore. There are 3 Meramon in total, and ideally you want to be pulling them over one at a time. Fighting and defeating all 3 of them at once is going to give you the exact same stat gains as fighting them individually. Now in the case of Renamon and Digimon, our stats are starting out at around 7k HP and MP and 1k all other stats. As you'll see as we go through the first few battles on this list, our HP and our MP aren't going to change too much to begin with. But as our first port of call, you should still be hoping to achieve around 5 to 600 all other stats. From the fiery peaks of Logic Volcano, we're then going to head over to Modcape and our number 2 spot. Here we're going to be encountering the very evil looking Saberdramon, who are level 26. Again, our HP and our MP isn't going to change that much if at all. Our strength should go up to around 2200 however, our stamina around 2000, our wisdom 16.5, and then speed about 2200. Again, you might find that these stats are different for your types of Digimon. There are a couple of factors that affect it, but as a general baseline, this is what you should be looking at. If for whatever reason you guys get there and you find that these Saberdramon aren't producing the stats that you're quite expecting or hoping for, you can move further into Modcape and find Saberdramon that are just a little bit stronger. These guys might be able to give you better gains on the whole, but you will have to fight a cluster of them together, and so picking them off individually can be quite annoying. As one of our beginning fights however, these fools are really accessible to a lot of players, and there are also a handful of them in the area, which means you don't have to walk in and out the loading screen after every single fight. After this, we're going to be heading over to the bus terminal part of the server desert and have a look at the Nanimon level 25 who can be found there. One of the great parts about this spot is that you can actually just transfer straight to the server desert hinterlands and then just walk up to the top of the hill past all the Psychmon. Head into the loading screen and you'll find our bald friends who again you want to try and pull over one at a time and fight individually. You should be able to take your strength and stamina up to around 2400, 2500, whereas your wisdom should go up to around 2300 and speed 2800. This is a training spot that I never really discovered until around my 3rd or 4th generation of rookies, but it is one that I particularly like because of how close and tight knit the area is. There are going to be a couple of instances where you aggro 2 of the Nanimon at once, or maybe even all 3 at once, which can be really annoying, don't get me wrong. In this scenario, just ensure that you've packed enough recoveries in order to avoid any unwanted nuisances. Up at our number 4 spot then, we're going to be heading back over to the Logic Volcano. Here, our next set of training partners are going to be another group of Nanimon, but this time of the Bomber variety. These guys are level 30 and can be found in Taomon's Medit place. Now, this spot isn't super ideal, as there is quite a distance between the loading screen and the 2 BomberNanimon who we're going to be fighting against, but you should find that these guys are pretty easy to defeat and still give you really good stats, meaning that they're worth a little extra effort. From your baseline stats that you achieved via the last set of Nanimon, Saberdramon then, you should be taking your strength up to around 3200, your stamina up to 3000, wisdom 2900, and speed all the way up to 3500. Again, one of the nice features about this spot is that if you decide to train here, you can speak to BomberNanimon, aka the sender, who for a ridiculously overpriced sum will deliver you straight to the doorstep of these fellows. All in all, this isn't a bad training spot. Just be sure that you're using your tent every now and then in order to get the free reset on the area. This is going to let you save yourself a couple of journeys when walking in and out the loading screen. As an alternative to the last spot, if you do not want to fight against BomberNanimon, you can instead fight against Woodmon, who are level 29 and can be found in Rosemon's palace in the Aguino Wastelands. In the last video, there were a couple of training spots which acted as an alternative to one another. In other words, they were both available to you at a certain stage, and you should pick one or the other, not both. This Woodmon spot is an example of this. You're not going to travel here straight from BomberNanimon, it's either one of the other. Obviously, if one or both of your partners have really strong fire abilities, then you might want to pick the Woodmon, for example, as you'll do extra damage to those guys. As such, your stat cap for this one is going to be extremely similar to the BomberNanimon. If anything, you might be able to squeeze a little bit more stamina stats from this guy, and also maybe an extra little bit of HP. I would say the main draw though of coming here over the BomberNanimon is that it is, again, a very tight knit area. You can reset the Woodmon very quickly, and there's no long walks in between each fight. At the end of the day, I feel like they're both quite good spots, so pick whichever one suits you best and grind to your heart's content. Up at our number 6 spot, we have yet another Digimon fight that was actually included in our last video in the honourable mentions category. However, based on what I've read online and in the comments to the last video, this is an extremely popular training spot, and therefore I thought I'd show you guys rather than just mention it. If you make it all the way up to the top of Bonnie Resort and manage to make it through the graveyard to the inside of the Pink Stone House, you will find our next training spot, which is Wizardmon, and these guys are going to be level 40. Now, if you told me you weren't really too interested in this training spot because of the journey from the bottom of Bonnie Resort to the top, I would understand. It is quite a time consuming trek, and if you can't be bothered with that, then you might want to think about this beforehand. If you manage to survive the journey, however, the Wizardmon inside actually act as a really good training partner. For me, I took Renamon and Demidevimon from the 3100, 3400 baseline all the way up to around 4200, low 4000s. In addition, for the first time in our list, we're actually going to see some substantial increases to our MP, which in my case went all the way up from 8k to around 14k. Inside, next to the Wizardmon, you will also find a black Gatomon, which, although she doesn't look like it, is actually an ultimate Digimon, and therefore she's going to provide you with a decent amount of stats as well. Anyways, if you do decide to grind at this spot, just ensure that again you've packed enough supplies, as getting to this place is most of the effort. This location is probably one of the least accessible out of all our training spots that we're going to cover, and the last thing you want to realise when you get here is that you've not visited the shop beforehand. Now, as we hit our number 7 spot, you guys should be coming to round about the area where your rookies are going to be looking to digivolve. With this in mind then, our next area is one that you could probably consider as an optional stop. The fact of the matter is, whether you choose to come here or not, you will only likely be here for a short amount of time. We're going to be heading back to the Dragon's Trident part of Logic Volcano, but this time instead of the Meramon that we fought in the beginning, we're going to be attacking the MegaSeadramon, who is level 25 and can be found in the middle path. Really, the only reason I came here at all was because the Wizardramon, who we were previously fighting, were starting to dwindle in the stats that they were giving me. I knew that my Digimon were very close to digivolving into champions, and so instead of wasting time with the small stats we were getting from Wizardmon, I decided to spend my last few hours training here. Really, I only picked up 1000 HP and 100 of the other stats, so if you want to go back to the city and spend time training in the gym or whatever, then that's cool as well. I was just trying to find a way to maximise my efficiency for the point in time, and therefore if you want to visit this spot at all, it can act as a nice sort of in-between pit stop. Anyways, I thought that it was worth mentioning. I'll leave it up to you guys to decide. Onwards and upwards then, you'll be pleased to know that at our next stop, we are finally going to see some decent gains on our HP stat. Back to Aguino Wastelands it is, but this time instead of stopping in the entrance hall of the Rosemon Palace, we are going to be heading straight on through to Rosemon's room, right at the back of the castle. If you have already completed the Rosemon quest, you will find that this area is now inhabited by a MegaKabuterimon and 2 of his friends. This bug fellow is level 36 and will provide a pretty decent challenge for you and your partners. When I was fighting here, I was able to take my HP all the way up to 18,500 and my MP up to 20,000. If you have 2 Digimon partners who are weak to earth or poison type moves, then you might find this spot a little difficult. But for everyone else, I think this will be a really good spot for you guys. You should give it a go and see how you get on. If it provides too difficult at first, just remember that after every single fight, your Digimon will progressively get stronger. If you feel like in the beginning you're requiring too many HP recoveries in order to sustain yourself in these fights, don't worry about it. The more times you fight this guy, the easier it should technically become. With a bit of patience, your stats should shoot up pretty quickly, and in no time at all, you'll be kicking this guy's ass. Once MegaKabuterimon stops giving you decent stats, you can then move on to our penultimate spot. Although it might seem like a bit of a cop-out, our next one isn't that exciting, but in truth, it actually acts as a suitable stepping stone before we hit our last and final training area. As I expect a lot of you guys to have Infinite Cauldron unlocked by now, it is likely that at some point you have already ran into Wizardmon and Sorcerermon. Again, this spot isn't very inventive, but it does exactly what it needs to do. Even with your champion Digimon, you should be able to grind against these guys for as long as you like. In my last video, I recommended that you only take your champions up to around the 5k stat point, as anything above this will be negated by the free stats that you're going to be given when you digivolve anyway from champion into ultimate. That being said though, my Devimon required an extra 6k HP to meet the requirements to digivolve into his target. Because of this then, I spent a little extra time grinding and took all my stats up to 6k. Again, it's up to you whether you want to keep going at this point. You don't have to if you don't want to, but if you have been efficient with your time up until this point, it is likely that you will have a couple of days spare before your champions change into ultimates. Whatever you decide to do though, at this stage you're starting to get to the point where your Digimon are really strong and can probably kick a lot of ass. Regardless, Wizard and Sorcerermon should be useful for this and take you where you need to get to. Okay, at this point you'll be pleased to know that we've finally arrived at our last training spot. At this time, you should probably be around ultimate form or looking to digivolve into Mega pretty soon. If you decide that Platinum Numamon isn't quite giving you any more good stats, or you've just decided that you're fed up of having shit thrown at you 24/7, the next possible step would be to head to Absolute Zero into the Concealed Gorge where you will find MetalSeadramon. If any of you have already watched my guide on where to get the top level 7 attack skills, you will know that you can only access the Concealed Gorge after you've completed the main quest and defeated the Belphemon, who is sleeping there to begin with. MetalSeadramon will have a lot of moves that will piss you off, but if you're looking for one of the strongest respawnable enemies in the game, then MetalSeadramon is your guy. I fought against this bro for quite some time, and I was able to take my HP and my MP all the way up to 40k. All of my other stats, strength, stamina, wisdom, speed, they all went up to 7k. As far as I'm aware though, it didn't look like this guy was going to slow down at any time soon, and therefore I expect the stat gains you can gain from MetalSeadramon probably go above and beyond 7k. If any of you guys want to confirm this down in the comments below, then please do. Anyways, I hung around until my Digimon changed into Megas, as you can see on screen now, but as I'm guessing you guys already know, because your partners are so strong at this point, the buffs you get from Digivolution are minimalised anyway. At the end of the day, if you have managed to follow along this path and fight these guys round about the same areas that I have, you should now have two really strong Digimon that should be able to go on and beat a large amount of the game. And that about rounds us up, guys. Remember, I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but these 10 areas are not meant to replace the original 15, they just aim to provide some extra spots that you might find useful, if for example you didn't like some of the first training areas that we mentioned in the first video. The fights that you take might not give you the exact same stat buffs that I have got in the examples that I've shown on screen, but I would assume that your stat gains should be very similar to mine, and therefore you should still be able to use this guide as a baseline for your gameplay. As always guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I don't know how some of you guys managed to put up with my voice all the way to the end of these guides, but for those of you that do, you guys are absolutely amazing and I love you so much. If you fancy it, be sure to follow the Mr. Wolfie Twitter. It will be the fastest way of finding out about new videos coming out and or get in touch with me if you really want to do so. With all this being said and done though, I have been Jack, aka Mr. Wolfie, aka whatever you and the backing singer of your favourite K-pop band want to call me. Thanks for sticking around folks, have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.